Hey everyone, how are you doing? Mike the handy homeowner here, and today's project we're gonna swap out the motor in this old Ryobi reciprocating saw. So this reciprocating saw was my first green version. This is the model P514. I was using this a few months ago and I noticed it started to smell a little burnt. Now I actually got this particular one used from someone else for a real good deal with a whole bunch of other stuff that the guy just didn't want anymore, and it worked, and it still does work. But the motor was definitely starting to go. So what I decided to do for a fun project was order a new replacement motor for it. So that's what I've got here. I think this was $17. I think I got it on eBay. Pitt Auto Electric Company, TTI. Okay, it's a TTI product, which is who makes Ryobi and Milwaukee stuff. So this is number 230074015. Okay, so we've got a replacement motor. We need to replace the motor then. And I know already what was the problem, so when I get it apart, I'll show you that. Alright, so this thing's being held together by a whole bunch of Torx T20 screws. So let me get those out. Alright, I think I got them all loosened up. Let's see if this comes apart the way it's supposed to. There we go. That's easy. Okay, now here's what we've got. This old motor used to have some fan in there like this one does, but as you can see, it's not there. What happened to it was, well, the thing overheated and it just burnt it up to a crisp, and all the plastic pieces of the fan chipped apart and fell out. I kind of helped take them out too. But since I've got this motor for 17 bucks, which may or may not be a deal, I know a lot of people think of these Ryobi tools as just throwaway, but you know, I figured for 17 bucks for the motor, I can't go wrong. It's a fun little project. Give me something to do on a rainy day, so here we go. So the way this works is that this whole piece here just comes right out. You just got to loosen this. You take this piece here and open it up, and the whole thing kind of slides out of there. All right. Now they've got the wires held down really nicely there with this metal plate. So this little plate has two little Phillips head screws on it, and all that is to hold the wires out of the way so that the battery can slide up into here. Okay. All right, so we're going to loosen up these two little Phillips head screws. And take this plate out of here. Oops. Okay, now our wires will pop loose, and that way we can come over and take this out like this. Let me get something to put those screws into. If you don't have one of these magnetic trays, I highly recommend getting one. That way you can put all your screws in there and other hardware when you're working on something. And you may as well do yourself a favor and buy 2 or 3 of them. You can get them at Harbor Freight really cheap. I know Ace Hardware probably has some cheap ones. Get yourself more than one, because inevitably you're going to be working on something and have a bunch of screws in one of them, and then you're going to have another project that you need to have for the screws of that project. So ask me how I know. Okay, so what we're going to do is take this motor out of here, and all this is a couple of Phillips head screws. Nope, let me get a bigger screwdriver for that one. Okay. Got a bigger head on this screwdriver so it fits in those screws better. This is pretty cool how this works. I don't know if you know, with a reciprocating saw, when the motor spins around, all it does is spin this gear, and when that gear spins, it spins this gear, which then moves this arm, and the whole thing, let me see if I can get that all in the shot there, just goes around and around. Isn't that cool? I thought that was pretty cool the first time I ever opened this up. I've seen one of these before. All right, back to the business at hand. So we've got our replacement motor. It came with the gear already on it. That's great. And what we need to do is identify our positive and negative. And it looks like it's set up like this. So what we're going to do is unsolder these and solder them onto this one. Okay, let's see how this goes, heating this up. Okay. Well, we got the heat shrink off pretty easy. Oh, I see what they did. They fed the wire through the terminal on the motor. Take a look at this, guys. So the terminals have this hole in them, right? And what they did was they ran that wire through it. So we're gonna just snip that off then. Okay, we got a pair of side dikes. We're just gonna cut that. We're gonna make this real easy on ourselves and just cut that off. All right, we stripped off a little bit of insulation on the red one. I'm gonna take this old motor, get rid of that. Okay. Now, we could probably copy what they did a little bit. Feed the black through the terminal, and then I'll use my needle nose pliers to give it a little bend. Let's solder it up. And when you're soldering, you want to get both the wire and, well, both wires or whatever it is you're soldering, you want to get all of that hot. Okay, you do not want to have what's called a cold solder joint. So the terminal and the wire need to be warm. You really want the solder to melt by touching the terminal and the wire, not the soldering iron itself. Alright, let me turn this camera around. Now that's a good solder joint. Alright, you see how the solder flowed around everything and not just into or onto the wire. Now we're going to do the same with this terminal. Okay, feed it through that hole, give it a little bend around, and that'll be what we solder. Okay, so we're gonna get that nice and hot. There we go. Starting to melt from the backside here. There we go. The solder melted on that joint. Okay, now that we got the motor soldered, here's what I want to do. Before I put it all back together and find out it doesn't work, we're going to test it. So I got a battery here. Just going to connect that. Let's see here, we got to get these wires out of the way. Okay, connect the battery and give it a pull. There you go. It works. Okay, let's get our screws. Let's put it back together. So this just feeds right up into here, and we want to, of course, line up the screw holes on the motor. There's 2 screw holes, and we're going to line those up with the holes of this contraption. I'm going to put these screws back in. You see they have a little lock washer, so you want to make sure that didn't get lost. And let's see here. There you go. You can feel that one catch. Now the other one should be close to lined up, and it is. That's easy enough. Get our Phillips screwdriver, tighten those down, and none of this has to be crazy tight. We're just getting it snugged up real good. Okay, now let's get this whole thing back in place where it goes, and to do that we're gonna have to take this is the part that's a little tricky. You've got this blade release lever. Okay, you're gonna have to shove that through. Let me get you over here. Okay, we're gonna have to shove that blade release lever through the hole while getting it close, and that's the challenge, because you kind of get your fingers stuck in the way when you're doing that. All right, so once that goes, it should kind of pop in place and fall in. Let's see, there we go, there we go. Just kind of snaps back in. All right, nothing too complicated there. We're gonna feed these wires through. You want to watch that the wires aren't gonna get pinched. So there's a couple of little slots for those wires to go. let's see here. I wonder if we should have turned that motor other direction. Nah, it'll be fine. I'm gonna pull a little extra wire out of there. There we go. All right, great. That works. Now we're going to put this cover back in place. How did that go? There we go. Okay. And that was just these small Phillips head screws. I'm going to put one back in there. And this is just to keep the wires from ever getting pinched when you put the battery in. So as long as they're out of the way, you're going to be fine. Oops, that one doesn't want to go in. Why doesn't it? Okay. Okay. That's that. That's that. One more time, we're gonna test it because I like to make sure it's gonna work. There you go. It works. Okay. Now we're just gonna put this outside cover back on. Again, maybe a little tricky. Just kind of make sure that the trigger goes in the right place. You got your little safety trigger mechanism. It's nothing too hard, I know. Let's see if that tightens down on that piece there. There you go. One more time. Okay. Awesome. Now we're just going to tighten down these Torx screws. Well, let's make sure that goes together right. There we go. Give it a little squeeze. That's because these screws never came all the way out, so they kind of were holding it in place, holding it apart a little. This is a well-used tool, I'll tell you that much, and got a lot of life out of that old motor. Pretty much just got abused over the years. No problem. When you're cutting a lot of debris, demolition, you end up with a lot of dust. And dust is not your friend on the motor, so just go around one more time, make sure they're all snug down, and you should be fine. All right, guys, that's it. Motor swap on a reciprocating saw. This was a Ryobi P514. I imagine most other brands are going to be a pretty similar setup. The only thing you need that's special out of all this is that Torx T20, and if you have that screwdriver, then the rest of this is a piece of cake. Just get your soldering iron and some solder. Only took a couple minutes, really. Probably take longer to edit the video than it ever did to get this job done. And well, there you go. Should be good to go for another 10 or 20 years, because these things last. I'll tell you that, they really do. For a cheap little saw, it gets a lot of work done. I hope this helps you out. Please click like and subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.